Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are strapping in for a journey to the rugged northern Highlands of Scotland. We're setting our sights on a distillery that, for a lot of dedicated enthusiasts, is, well, it's something near religion.
It really is.
We are going deep on the history, the drama, and the unique chemical anomaly that defines Clynelish.
And we really are approaching this like an investigation because Clynelish it's an anomaly. It's a cornerstone distillery in the global spirits industry.
Right.
I mean,
right.
it anchors some of the world's biggest blends, yet it has this almost cult-like status as a single malt.
That's the contradiction, isn't it?
Exactly. Our sources show this really dramatic history tied just completely to its legendary twin, Brora. And of course, most famously, it has that unique, almost tactile whiskey profile.
The waxy texture.
The signature oiled, waxy texture.
That waxy texture it's kind of the white whale of Scotch whiskey production, isn't it? It's a signature that is, well, it's virtually impossible for competitors to replicate consistently.
It really is.
So our mission today is, threefold. We need to explore the distillery's tumultuous founding, which was during a genuinely brutal historical period. We have to understand the existential drama it shared with its twin, Brora. And, crucially, we need to try and solve the central mystery. How does Clynelish maintain that incredible, thick, waxy character year after year?
It is the defining feature. I mean, you often hear Clynelish referred to as the waxy heart or the flavor backbone of high-end blended whiskeys.
Right, the component part.
Exactly. While it's sought after as a single malt, you have to remember, the majority of its massive production is vital for blends, most notably the Johnnie Walker Gold Label Reserve.
That dual role being both an indispensable industrial blending component and this highly desired, characterful single malt that tells you everything. It tells you everything about the quality and the consistency they're managing to achieve.
It does.
It represents, I think, the pinnacle of characterful Highland whiskey. It manages to be complex, maritime, and just utterly distinct.
It really does.
So it's time to start at the very beginning, because the historical context of its founding is not only fascinating, but directly linked to social and economic conflict. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So if we're going to pinpoint the timeline, Clynelish was founded precisely in 1819.
1819.
And the man behind this venture was an immensely powerful, though deeply controversial figure of the age, George Granville Levison Gower.
Who was then the Marquis of Stafford.
And would later become the Duke of Sutherland.
Right. And that founder is just...
Yeah.
You cannot separate him from the context.
Yeah.
The fact that the distillery was founded in 1819 lands it right in the middle of one of the most painful and transformative periods in all of Scottish history.
Yeah, this wasn't some peaceful time of, agricultural prosperity. This was the absolute height of the Highland clearances.
Precisely. To truly appreciate Clynelish's origin, you have to understand the immense human cost of the clearances.
Can you just paint a picture of that for us?
Well, it was a systematic and often violently enforced restructuring of the Highlands, a socio-economic restructuring driven by landowners, just like the Marquis of Stafford.
And what was the goal?
The goal was profit. They were displacing thousands of tenant farmers or crofters from their ancestral lands, pushing them out to convert the terrain into these much more profitable commercial sheep farms.
So it was a mass eviction.
It was a mass eviction and a total disruption of the traditional Gaelic way of life, just catastrophic.
The scale of that displacement was staggering, and the economic rationale was it was brutal profit optimization. Sheep paid better than people on these small plots of land.
That was the calculus.
So for the primary orchestrator of these clearances, the Marquis of Stafford himself, to establish a commercial enterprise like a distillery at this exact moment, it couldn't have just been a simple financial investment.
Right.
There had to be an overarching social strategy at play here.
It was absolutely a calculated move. The distillery was established as this multi-purpose tool, a tool of control and transition, designed to address the very social and economic problems that the clearances themselves had created.
Okay, so what were the goals?
Well, we can identify three specific critical goals. The first one, you could almost call it the humanitarian angle, if you could even use that word here.
Bit of a stretch,
A
probably.
huge stretch. But the stated goal was to create legitimate, structured, and regulated employment for the local population.
The very people being moved off their traditional cross.
Exactly. They were being resettled in these newly planned coastal towns like Brora itself. The distillery offered an industrial alternative to subsistence farming. It was a form of mitigation, providing a regulated wage-based livelihood when mass unemployment was a certainty.
So in a way, it was a method of managing the social fallout of his own policies. It created a necessary and, I guess, a controllable, regulated economy.
Exactly. Controllable is the key word. But it was also designed to solidify the new commercial agricultural model. Which brings us to goal number 2.
Which was?
The distillery provided a guaranteed industrial market for local barley production.
Ah, so not from the small crofters anymore.
No, from the larger, commercially managed farms that replaced the crofters. It integrated the remaining local agriculture into this new top-down economic system.
And then there's the third goal, which I imagine must have been immediate and financially rewarding. It relates to controlling the flow of alcohol itself.
Absolutely. The third goal was to compete directly against the massive and, I should say, incredibly popular wave of illegal distillation.
Moonshining.
Right. It was prevalent across the Highlands. For centuries, moonshining or illicit stilling was a way of life. It operated completely outside the tax structures imposed by the Crown.
So Clynelish represented the formal, licensed, and excise-controlled push against that tradition.
That's it. By creating a quality legal product, the Marquis was attempting to establish government control and, of course, generate tax revenue from alcohol production in this very remote area.
You know, that transition from a decentralized, kind of wild economy based on these small, untaxed stills to a formalized, centralized, industrial Victorian model. That's a huge historical theme.
It is.
Clynelish, in a sense, wasn't just a business. It was a political statement. It was about establishing order in a region that was being, frankly, forcefully reshaped.
It symbolizes the imposition of order and commercial profitability. And for nearly 50 years, Clynelish operated effectively. It cemented its local identity and produced a desirable spirit.
And that stability, that sort of sets the stage for the next shift, doesn't it, in the late 1800s, where we see the growth really accelerating.
Yeah, the influence of the broader whiskey trade arrived.
Right. We see the takeover by firms like James Ainsley and Heilbronn. That suggests this pretty remote Highland distillery was becoming too attractive for the blending houses down south to ignore.
That takeover is crucial. It signifies Clynelish's transition from, a regional venture into a national industrial facility.
It's going big time.
It is. The late Victorian era brought massive expansion. We're talking about significant investment that completely transformed the physical plant.
So new buildings?
Oh, yeah. The construction of those famous features like the towering pagodas, the increased still capacity, and the absolute necessity of new, extensive warehousing.
So this physical manifestation of growth confirms that Clynelish was now a serious, high-volume player.
It was. And that paves the way for the really dramatic crisis of the mid-20th century.
And that dramatic twist arrives in the 1960s.
It's 60s.
The post-war economic boom and the rise of Scotch globally created this just insatiable demand for reliable stock, especially for international blends.
Right. The problem wasn't selling the whiskey. The problem was making enough of it.
And the demand was astronomical, particularly from the major blenders. The executives realized they had completely maxed out the capacity of the original 1819 facility.
They'd hit a wall.
Their solution was stark, but purely pragmatic. In 1967, instead of taking the old facility offline for some complicated renovation,
Which would have taken forever.
they just built a brand new, enormous, fully operational distillery directly across the road.
It's an incredible move when you think about it.
It sounds like a fascinating moment in industrial history. Two distinct, fully functioning production sites staring at each other, both named Clynelish, both producing spirit. Why didn't they just, build a bigger mash house or add some stills to the original?
Time and guaranteed supply.
Right.
The parent company, which was already DCL, Diageo's predecessor, they needed guaranteed supply for blends like Johnnie Walker, and they needed it immediately and consistently.
No downtime.
No downtime. Shutting down the old plant for construction was simply not an option. Building a new, optimized plant next door allowed for a smooth, massive production ramp-up without any interruption.
So we had this brief period of parallel operation. What did they even call them internally to avoid total confusion?
Well, they adopted a very bureaucratic designation. Clynelish A for the old 1819 building.
The original.
And Clynelish B for the massive modern 1967 facility. And this temporary dual identity that led to the pivotal decision 2 years later when they finally solidified the branding.
Which brings us to 1969. This is the year the narrative takes its most poignant turn. The older distillery, Clynelish A, was officially renamed Brora.
Brora.
But the name change wasn't just cosmetic. It was accompanied by a total, though temporary shift in the type of spirit they produced there.
That's right. Brora, the newly named older facility, began producing a starkly different spirit, a significantly heavily peated whiskey,
A huge departure.
a radical departure from the established gentle, waxy maritime style of Clynelish.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for this transformation is just a perfect microcosm of how interconnected the industry is.
They weren't just, flexing their muscles with peat for the fun of it. They were solving a supply chain crisis hundreds of miles away.
Precisely. This temporary heavy peat production was urgently mandated to replace the critical supply of peated stock normally provided by Isla,
The big Islay distillery.
the major Islay distillery, which had closed down temporarily for a massive renovation and capacity expansion. The parent company desperately needed peated malt to maintain their blend recipes.
Especially for things like their old black label components, I'd imagine.
You'd imagine right. So they repurposed the older, smaller Brora plant to meet this acute, very specific need.
That is genuinely remarkable. The entire legend of Brora, its current mythic status, is rooted in a temporary stopgap measure, a result of a refurbishment at an Islay distillery.
And that specific era of heavily peated Brora production, particularly the runs distilled between 1969 and the mid-1970s, that is what sealed its immortal status among collectors.
It was a short window.
A very brief period of intense, smoky production that provided the unique stock that, well, it became liquid gold upon its closure.
But the same economic forces that necessitated the new distillery, they eventually turned against the old one.
Inevitably. Despite its temporary new peated identity, Brora was deemed surplus to requirements once Clynelish came back online.
And the industry faced a general downturn.
The whiskey lock of the 80s, exactly. Brora was closed in 1983, part of a really painful wave of closures that swept through Scotland at the time.
And the immediate consequence was the birth of the legend.
Instantly. Brora, the lost twin, became one of the world's most sought-after lost distilleries.
Right.
The small volumes of that highly specific, heavily peated stock locked away in their warehouses. They began their slow, decades-long climb to legendary status, commanding unbelievable prices at auction.
And meanwhile, Clynelish, the newer, larger facility, it became the clear, undisputed heir.
It did. It focused entirely on maintaining its unique, waxy style, and it secured its role as a cornerstone of Diageo's immense portfolio.
That contrast is the powerful narrative arc of the site. Clynelish carried on the commercial mandate, ensuring that specific indispensable flavor profile needed by the blenders was constantly produced.
And its survival, its stability, and its sheer volume ensure its ongoing and crucial relevance in the global whiskey trade. The survivor gained the stability, while the sacrifice became the legend.
To understand Clynelish today, you really have to grasp its corporate context. We know it's owned by Diageo, the world's largest spirits group, but that ownership isn't a modern phenomenon, is it?
No, and that's vital context. This connection isn't some recent corporate raid. The company that would become the core of Diageo, the Distillers Company Limited, or DCL, had its structures in place long ago.
So when did they get involved?
Johnnie Walker and Sons first invested in Clynelish way back in the 1920s. They realized its essential character. It quickly became integrated into DCL, which was the direct predecessor of Diageo.
So Clynelish has been strategically vital to the world's biggest blending operation for a full century.
A century.
It's not just a distillery, it's a piece of critical infrastructure for a global giant.
Which is absolutely reflected in its output. We discussed the expansion in the 1960s, and believe me, those stills are running hard.
What are we talking, numbers-wise?
Clynelish produces consistently between 4.2 and 4.8 million liters of pure alcohol per year.
Wow.
To help you visualize that, we are talking about enough new spirit annually to fill the equivalent of roughly 12,000 standard American oak casks.
That is massive volume for a single malt distillery, especially one that retains such a bespoke, unique character.
And this incredible scale tells you everything you need to know about its primary purpose.
The blends.
The sheer volume dictates that the overwhelming majority of that output, conservatively, you're looking at 90% or more, is not destined for single malt bottles.
It's reserved.
It is rigorously reserved for crucial high-end blending operations. This volume signals that Clynelish is absolutely indispensable. The parent company cannot afford for the spirit to fluctuate or disappear.
It must maintain that volume.
And more importantly, it must maintain that unique, defining, waxy character that adds structural integrity and that luxury texture to their high-end blends.
It's the engine room of mouthfeel. The only reason we even see a single malt release is because that highly characterful spirit occasionally needs to be showcased or It provides a small surplus once the blending requirements are met.
Yes.
It's a happy accident for us, the consumers, that such a unique element is even available outside of a blend.
Indeed. It's the highest compliment, really.
Mm-hmm.
When a distillery known for its essential contribution to blends is equally respected for its single malt, it just confirms the spirit is robust enough to stand on its own.
And that brings us finally to the core identity, the wax.
The wax.
We've established that three things make Clynelish unique: the flavor profile, that Brora relationship, and the coastal Highland style. But now we're zeroing in on the most technical and I think the most fascinating point, the iconic signature waxy character.
This texture is the definitive marker. It's not just some subtle note in the background. It's a physical, tactile quality on the palate.
You can feel it.
You can feel it. An oily, waxy texture that genuinely coats the inside of your mouth. It's this almost greasy quality that virtually no other distillery, even those using the same type of copper stills or the same maturation regime, can consistently replicate.
So it's the signature?
It is the signature of the Clynelish spirit, and it's a mystery worthy of a deep dive.
Okay, so if it defies replication, it can't be a single, simple factor. The sources hint at a complex confluence of specific, almost non-standard production choices. What are the mechanical and biochemical factors that create this unique wax?
We can break it down into 4 interlocking stages of production that all work together to contribute to this heavy, textured character. And we have to start right at the beginning of the process.
Which is fermentation, where the magic really begins.
Correct. The first factor is a special fermentation profile. This might involve using a unique house yeast strain, or maybe introducing different types of lactobacillus bacteria into the process. The key is that the regimen is designed to encourage the creation of heavier, more complex chemical compounds.
What kind of compounds?
We're talking high molecular weight esters and fatty acids. These are the molecules that ultimately taste like wax and provide that oily texture.
So it's about choosing the right molecular building blocks from the very start.
Absolutely. And linked directly to that profile is the second factor, long fermentation.
How long are we talking?
Well, while many commercial distilleries run relatively fast fermentations, say 48 to 60 hours, Clynelish typically allows the process to run much longer, potentially 70 to 100 hours, or even more.
And what does that extra time achieve chemically? What does that prolonged microbial life do?
It creates heavier, more complex flavor compounds. You can think of it like slow cooking. The longer the yeast and bacteria work, the more time they have to break down the sugars and create these desired wax-like esters and fatty acids. It's time, literally creating texture and weight in the liquid before it even hits the still.
That's fascinating. So that brings us to the equipment in the washroom. The third factor cited is the unique washbacks themselves.
Right. The washbacks, those are the vessels where fermentation happens, can be made of stainless steel or wood.
And Clynelish uses
Wood. And wooden washbacks are porous. Over time, they become seasoned, harboring these diverse microbial colonies and layers of residue that contribute to a consistent fermentation profile.
So the material, the size, and probably most importantly, the cleaning regimen of these washbacks, they influence the liquid in subtle but powerful ways.
Yes, encouraging the specific biochemical environment needed for that heavy character. The vessels are almost part of the recipe itself.
They're living parts of the process.
They are. And finally, we get to the distillation itself. We talk constantly about the size and shape of the copper stills, but here, the sources point to a highly specific way of running the condensers.
And this is maybe the most critical technical detail. The condensers are coiled tubes or plate structures where the hot spirit vapor is cooled and turned back into liquid.
Exactly. Now, if you run the distillation process quickly, or if you run the condensers at an extremely cold temperature, you rapidly condense the vapor. You end up capturing mostly light volatile compounds.
But Clynelish does the opposite.
They seem to run them in a way that allows them to collect the heavier compounds. This might involve maintaining a slightly warmer temperature on the cooling water, or critically, it involves tolerating a specific internal buildup. They're essentially creating conditions that trap those high molecular weight elements, like fatty acids, that would normally pass through or be filtered out.
Okay, this brings us to the core technical insight. The moment that reveals Clynelish's identity is truly unique. You mentioned tolerating internal buildup.
Yes.
The distillery maintains its profile by a consciously preserved technical anomaly in the production line. This is the ultimate aha moment for anyone studying the distillery.
It is the perfect contradiction. In any other high-volume, modern industrial process, the goal is pristine, standardized efficiency. Every piece of equipment is designed to be flawless and easy to clean.
Right.
Here, the sources confirm that the unique waxy character is directly linked to a residue, a specific buildup of heavy oils and esters that adheres to the inside of the condenser tubes.
So, this residue, which a head distiller at another facility might consider a flaw or a sign that, it's time for some serious maintenance, it's intentionally managed and left in place at Clynelish.
Because it is directly responsible for generating the signature wax notes.
It's a form of managed imperfection.
It is. Think of it like a patina on copper or the seasoning on a cast iron pan. That layer is not scraped clean. Instead, it is carefully preserved. As new spirit vapor passes over that seasoned layer of residue, it interacts and carries those heavy compounds forward, enriching the final spirit with the necessary oils and waxes.
So if they removed this residue, if they scrubbed the condensers completely clean,
You would instantly erase the Clynelish character. Gone.
that requires an enormous leap of faith in the precision of imperfection. They are trusting an anomaly to maintain consistency across nearly 5 million liters of production annually.
And it highlights how absolutely vital this single characteristic is to the corporate giants that own them. This technical quirk is tolerated, managed, and perhaps even deliberately encouraged.
Because that waxiness provides the essential, luxurious mouthfeel that elevates high-end blends.
It's why Clynelish is mandated as a core malt in Johnnie Walker Gold Label Reserve. It's the structural element that ensures that blend tastes richer and more distinctive than its competitors.
If you remove that signature texture, the structural integrity of the Gold Label Reserve would just collapse. That puts an incredible amount of pressure on the distillers to maintain this perfect flaw with meticulous consistency.
Absolutely.
So, moving beyond the texture to the actual paste, we situate Clynelish in the Northern Highlands. Yet it kind of breaks the mold of what we typically expect from those deep, earthy, inland Highland malts.
Yeah, it does.
Its proximity to the sea infuses it with a distinct coastal, maritime influence.
Its location near the coast really dictates the character. The air, the environment, perhaps even the water sources. They all subtly influence the maturation process.
And what does that result in?
It results in a spirit defined by sharpness and clarity. The flavor profile is characterized by these bright notes of salted sea air, vibrant citrus, the unmistakable wax, and this underlying minerality.
The sources also mention a slight variability, noting that some batches carry a light smokiness. Is this just a flavor memory of Brora, or is there a genuine peated element?
It's generally an extremely light, often fleeting smokiness. It doesn't dominate the profile at all, but it does add a nice layer of complexity.
Where does it come from?
It might stem from the very light use of peated malt in the barley mix, or perhaps trace elements carried over from the long, long history of the site. Crucially, it provides depth without overpowering that elegant waxy core.
So when a taster puts the salt, the minerality, the citrus, and that heavy waxiness all together, what's the overall impression of the final product?
The result is a whiskey that manages to be simultaneously elegant, and by that I mean beautifully structured and balanced and complex. It has layers of flavor that reveal themselves slowly over time.
And most
Importantly, it is incredibly consistent. That ability to maintain the exact same flavor and texture profile year after year, despite relying on a managed anomaly, is the true mark of distillation mastery.
And the final unique factor is that profound historical narrative it possesses, because of the shared geography and history with Brora.
Yes.
Clynelish has a profound double identity because it is forever linked to the legend of its lost twin.
It's a narrative that collectors absolutely cherish. Brora is the legend, the rare mythic spirit of the 70s, now enjoying this dramatic, long-awaited revival.
Clynelish is?
Clynelish is the inheritor and the tireless workhorse.
Yeah.
The active, vital counterpart that kept the character alive. They are two distinct yet interconnected expressions of the same northern coastline.
And we have to emphasize that crucial historic style difference again. Brora, in its final famous run, produced that bold, heavily peated style.
Out of commercial necessity, it was fulfilling a gap in the supply chain.
Right. And Clynelish, conversely, focused relentlessly on maintaining the smooth, waxy maritime style.
The distinction is so powerful when you get to sample them side by side. Brora often presents as smoky and rugged, a product of temporary desperation. Clynelish is consistently waxy and elegantly balanced, a product of stable, managed process.
And the difference in their final spirit shows how drastically a simple change in the barley spec can affect the outcome.
Even with identical equipment post-1967.
So what does this all mean for the enthusiast? What's the takeaway?
It gives Clynelish a profound historical depth that elevates it beyond just a mere tasting experience. You are not simply buying a bottle of quality single malt. You're engaging with the active, surviving counterpart to a global whiskey legend.
Right.
That narrative depth, the connection to the Clarences, the blending wars, the existence and closure of Brora, that appeals powerfully to collectors who value history, survival, and narrative just as much as flavor. It makes the whiskey a piece of Scottish history you can actually pour.
So let's turn to the practical considerations for the learner, for the person looking to experience this unique character. Despite its massive production scale focused on blends, the single malt portfolio is focused around a highly respected flagship release.
It is.
The entry point, the benchmark, is the Clynelish 14-year-old. This bottle is consistently highlighted in lists of the greatest, most characterful, standard-bearer single malts produced anywhere in Scotland. It's the definition of the distillery's intent.
It is the definitive presentation of the Clynelish style. It's marketed as a coastal single Highland malt whiskey. And a key detail for any enthusiast is that it is bottled at a sturdy 46% ABV.
And that higher strength is not an accident.
No, it is essential. The waxy, oily texture is fragile. Bottling at 46% ensures the character holds up, delivering intensity and structure without the flavors becoming washed out by dilution.
Let's use the detailed tasting notes to really analyze this expression, as it seems to encapsulate all the elements we've been discussing: the wax, the citrus, the salt.
For sure. Visually, it typically presents a light, clear golden color, which is a strong indicator that the majority of the casks used are second or third fill.
Prioritizing the spirit over the wood.
Exactly. Prioritizing the pure, complex spirit character over heavy wood influence.
So what should you expect from the aroma?
The aroma is instantly distinctive and complex. You get bright, fresh citrus notes, immediately followed by this bracing hit of sea salt and the creamy presence of the wax.
Anything else?
Oh yeah. There are background notes of vanilla, which suggests maturation in bogan casks, and a hint of spice, like cinnamon. The overall effect is clean, complex, and invitingly oily.
And now on to the taste, where the mouthfeel is everything.
This is where that 46% ABV and the wax anomaly really pay off. The texture is creamy and complex, and it just coats the palate completely. This waxy texture is the delivery system for these rich notes of mature fruit-think apples and pears, a robust malt sweetness, and a touch of honey.
And the wax is there throughout.
There is a persistent, elegant background of that Clynelish waxiness that makes the spirit feel full-bodied and lively on the tongue. And it's all balanced by a very mild, subtle background smokiness.
And how does this dense maritime profile conclude? What's the finish like?
The finish is classically long, dry, and elegantly structured. The final lingering sensations are dominated by those maritime nuances, that clean, salty air, and a mild, enduring, spicy warmth that just encourages another sip. It is an experience of depth, freshness, and unmistakable personality.
The application, the relevance of the 14-year-old, it really can't be overstated. Because it delivers such an intense but perfectly balanced experience at 46% ABV, it's not just good for drinking neat.
No.
It's also the ideal benchmark for comparative tastings.
Yeah.
If you want to teach someone the difference between the central Speyside style, the gentle lowlands, and the unique coastal highlands, the 14-year-old is the bottle you pour. It defines a category.
It really does.
And beyond the flagship, Clynelish operates in the specialized market too. The distillery-exclusive bottlings are highly valued, often noted for being significantly more fruity and experimental than the 14-year-old.
These exclusives are the opportunity for the distillation team to really explore the versatility of the spirit. They might use specific, smaller batches, perhaps showcasing different toast levels on the casks, or slightly varying the initial fermentation time to emphasize different esters.
So you get a deeper look.
You get a deeper look at the raw potential of the Clynelish spirit while it still retains that essential waxy core.
And then you've got the annual event for collectors, the special releases. Clynelish is a consistent and highly anticipated feature in Diageo's annual collection.
And its entries are always among the most sought-after bottlings. The special releases are where the distillery often shines brightest, showcasing older age statements, cask strength offerings, or unique finishes like specific sherry wood.
And at high proof, I imagine.
This is where the unique waxy signature, when you bottle it at a higher proof, it truly explodes on the palate. It offers maximum intensity and complexity. The tremendous demand for these rare releases is the ultimate validation of the distillery's cult status.
And finally, we have to look outside the official channels at the role of independent bottlings. Clynelish has a phenomenal reputation in that market.
It was the absolute darling of independent bottlers, and there is a technical reason why it performs so well when bottled by others.
What's that?
Its signature character shines most effectively when it's matured in refill casks. Because the base spirit possesses such powerful and distinct compounds, those waxes and oils, it doesn't need aggressive wood input.
Unlike some other whiskeys.
Right. Unlike some speyside malts that rely heavily on first-fill sherry or bourbon to define them, a light-touch refill cask allows the true Clynelish DNA, the wax, the citrus, the minerality, to dominate the final flavor profile. Independent bottlers love it because it's a spirit that speaks for itself.
Okay, so we have dissected the entire narrative, from the conflict of the Highland clearances to the chemistry of the condenser flaw. Let's synthesize this. What are the core compelling reasons why a dedicated collector, a true enthusiast, repeatedly builds their collection around Clynelish?
It's a synthesis of narrative and quality that is just.
Mhm.
It's difficult to match. Firstly, and most fundamentally, it has a truly unique flavor profile. That distinct, unmistakable, oily, waxy texture is an absolute differentiator in a crowded global market. You can identify Clynelish blind.
Secondly, the history is inescapable. We are talking about a dramatic and important history, a distillery founded not in celebration, but during the brutal socioeconomic upheaval of the Highland clearances, and then surviving the internal drama of the Brora split. That depth is rare.
Which leads directly to the third point, the profound connection to Brora. For collectors, owning a Clynelish is owning the active, successful counterpart to one of the world's most legendary lost distilleries. That narrative continuity is highly prized.
Fourthly, the quality is globally respected. It consistently delivers a whiskey that is both elegant and complex. It has the sophistication to satisfy the most experienced palate, yet the distinctive character to excite a newcomer.
And finally, it is simply one of the most characterful Highland malts available. It sets its own rules. It doesn't fit into the typical flavor quadrants. It is definitively, unapologetically Clynelish.
That strong, consistent identity is why it transcends mere brand loyalty and enters the realm of, cult status.
Absolutely. Clynelish is one of those distilleries that serious collectors often build entire shelves around. They collect various vintages, they explore the differences between independent bottlings and official releases, and they chase the special releases, all to explore every subtle facet of that singular waxy character. It's an ongoing process of discovery.
That concludes our exhaustive deep dive into Clynelish, a distillery that rose from the devastation of the Highland clearances, became the essential engine for a global blending powerhouse, weathered the closure of its twin, and now operates as a modern cult distillery essential to the global spirits trade.
And as we end, the narrative thread we keep coming back to is that conscious technical anomaly we discussed. The unique identity of Clynelish rests on the consciously preserved flaw in its production. That technical quirk in the condensers that generates the signature waxiness.
It's the ultimate paradox. In a world obsessed with standardization, efficiency, and engineering perfection, Clynelish finds its greatness in managing and protecting an acknowledged imperfection.
So, consider this provocative thought, especially as we navigate an age where technology aims to automate and streamline everything. What happens when we prioritize flawless engineering over unique character?
It's a great question.
Clynelish reminds us that sometimes the most profound, distinctive, and valuable identities in production, whether it's flavor, art, or even software, come not from flawless design, but from embracing a managed anomaly. It makes us wonder what other perfect mistakes exist out there, waiting to be appreciated.
A mistake we are immensely happy to sip and study. We encourage you to explore other whiskeys where a technical quirk defines the taste. It changes how you look at the entire craft of distillation. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the waxed heart of the Highlands.